Hello, folks. Welcome back. Um, we're just going to see if we can get Nettie and Nats to join us again. Just figuring out the technology here, so bear with me for a sec. Let's see if we have some success here. So I'm just waiting for Nettie to respond. There he is.
Fano,
Hello, Ned, my boy.
we just got a small kind of screen because the computer didn't really pick up the signal, so Nats is in here. So
Okay, cool. You're a little bit blurry. Hello, Nats. We can see a bit of you. Your connection's a little bit blurry, but we'll do our best. So move slowly, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit glitchy. I hope it works out.
We'll do our best, but with the the technology, hey, what can you do? We try our best.
I hear you.
And good to hear your voices, you guys. Flip, it's been an age, and if I can't see you so clearly, but you sound well.
Okay, well that's a start. Yeah, I think Juan, when we chatted briefly, I don't think I'd seen you for, geez, probably just post Olympics in Athens, so that's been a good while. So you've aged really, really well, and that beard is looking amazing.
Thank you, sir.
I don't think you had a beard back then, but obviously times have changed.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't grow a beard. I still battle a little bit. It's a bit patchy, but we're trying. I'm in the coffee world now, Nettie. I've got to look like a hipster, try and fit in. It's difficult, but we're trying.
Your new surf career is doing you well, and that's part of the look, I suppose.
I guess it is, eh? So a huge welcome to you both, Ned and Nats. Such a pleasure to be able to chat to you both while you're briefly in South Africa with your wonderful young family. So just by way of hey, Nats.
Hasn't been so brief after 5 weeks, I think, now.
Sure. Yeah, extended, not by your own choice.
Yeah, it's a bit mad what's going on, but I hope everyone's safe. So we'll just go with it until we get the all clear.
Yeah. Well, let's dive straight into it, guys. We've got about 55 minutes because Instagram gives us that like an hour amount of time. So, and there's lots I want to cover with both of you because you both have very interesting stories to share. And I think just by way of introduction, the folks who don't know you or never got to see you play in your playing careers, you both had amazing careers. I mean, Nettie, you had 193 caps for South Africa, which is absolutely phenomenal. Spanned 2 Olympic Games, all the way back from Atlanta was your first to Athens right at the end. And Nats, you played 69 test matches for South Africa. You went to the Commonwealth Games and a World Cup and an Olympic Games.
Yeah, I was lucky. My caps were fairly quite short, but I hit it well with between 2002 and 2004. So yeah.
Sure. And obviously you guys you met in 2000 at that infamous SAU and have never
looked back. Legends.
Yeah, it was a very memorable time. That it was. I'm not sure if you're asking about it or we're just going to just leave it as it is.
We're going to leave that for a little bit later. But what I do want to say, guys, is my initial memories of both of you guys, because I think what I've really enjoyed doing about these Instagram stories is that I think we get to have chats which are beyond just like what a normal journalist would ask you in a formal environment, whatever, because we have so many wonderful shared experiences, like the highs, the very lows on and off the fields, the hardness of, it's not really a great word, but the difficulty of being on tour and traveling. I think about Abuja, you guys were both on that trip, for example. So it's nice to be able to connect and reminisce, but also to kind of go to places where other people will probably never have had the insights or the chance to kind of unpack what it felt like to be a South African hockey player in those eras. So what I want to start by saying is that I think that you guys are just the most phenomenal couple in hockey ever. And I say that because as a young player, I looked up to you, Nettie. I was terrified of playing against Northerns with you and Jeff, your brother, in that side. And we'll get a little bit more onto that a bit later. And Nats, I always just remember you being such a hard worker and such a leader. And those are the kind of things that stick in my mind. Like, you both would never say die. You would always lead from the front. You'd never quit. And I think most of all, you inspired so many, and you continue to inspire so many hockey players around you.
Thank you.
Juan, yeah, well, that's quite an intro in a sense of as a couple. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. I think when you come back to my younger days and our younger days, but me specifically from a Northern's perspective, we always had to fight. It was just like, the team that we had to punch way above its weight all the time just to try and get somewhere. And I think that was indicative of, from the school, going through Boys High, Pretoria Boys High, going through Northerns into a provincial tournaments and things like that. We were a competitive team, but we didn't have the best players, but we had to do a lot more. And I think that was just kind of, in essence, my career, to be honest. And in a good way, from a provincial point of view. And in terms of creating that resilience, I think it was in spades in that space, because we weren't always that successful, but when we got it right, we were competitive. But the better teams with a bit more depth and that would get over the line against us more often than not. But we were still very competitive, and you couldn't really write us off. So that was quite cool. That was kind of the DNA of where we'd come from.
And Nats, you grew up in Durban.
Sorry, I guess from my perspective, I grew up in Durban, and I went to a small school. We weren't a big hockey school. So again, I had to work really hard to get to where I needed to. I think I was always my career was very much B team, A team, had to work my way up. Played for Natal, eventually moved to Stellies, got great opportunities there with Western Province, moved on to Northerns. But I think the resilience is kind of what made me work really hard when I got dropped for Sydney when I was non-traveling. I think that was really difficult, but it's a case of how much do you want it, I guess. And that's the previous, having to work up my way is, I guess, what stood me in good stead during that period. So yeah, it was a lot of hard work, but it was all worth it in the end. So
yeah.
And a question for both of you. Did you guys know that you would always be in hockey your whole lives as your careers? Because Nettie, I always remember you, and I mean this in the best possible way, like you were always a maverick. It didn't matter. You were always embracing like the latest trends in music, fashion. You were the first oak who would take down team meetings on that light blue, not Sony Ericsson with the stylus. You had a MacBook before anyone had a MacBook on tour. Like, whatever the latest thing was, like you were at the front of it and you were going for it and you were giving it horns 100%, and it didn't matter what you were doing. And that's, you studied, you had your honors in sports science and psychology. So obviously that aligns to a career staying close to sport as well. So did you guys always know that you would be in hockey for your careers?
I think, Juan, I have to bring my mother in on this one. So after school, she just said to me, I got offered a bursary to go to the Tux University, and she said, don't take it. She said, you're going to be there for 10 years. All you're going to do is play sport. You're probably not going to come away with even a marketing degree because you think that's what's going to get you through. Go and become a plumber. Do it for me for 3 to 4 years. And I don't care what you do after that. But have something behind the cells. Like, oh my gosh, it's the last thing I feel like doing, And actually, when I went through it, it was difficult because in those first 3 years, while I was really grafting, my mates were skipping class and could gym when they wanted to, could go play hockey when they wanted to. And then I would work the full day as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, and then end up training as well. But it actually was awesome for me because I worked the full day, then trained in the evening, and then got quite confident in my kind of like ability to push through, because plumbing's not easy. And then after that,
Yeah.
I just said, I don't want to talk to pipes anymore. Like, I'd had a really successful go at being a plumber. I had a business partner, I had a secretary. We had 8 guys working for us. We were making good money. And then I hit this point and I was like, can't do this anymore. I just don't want to talk to pipes anymore. I said to my dad, I'm selling up, I'm out, and I'm going overseas. And yeah, that's when the Chelmsford gig started with Jabba. And yeah, and then it just basically, I knew from then I wanted to be involved in hockey. It took a while. It wasn't easy, but I'd had obviously a good amount of time in the international game. And then I thought, no, I really enjoy this. I really like working with people, project-based, trying to achieve stuff in terms of a team environment. And then it just took off from there. So yours?
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, studying in sports science, I guess being involved in sport was what I wanted to do, not necessarily on the coaching side, I guess. I think I was probably wanting to pursue more this, to be honest, initially the psychology around sport, and when I was involved in playing, I did quite a lot of talks around, you know, women in sport and motivation and that line of work, which is actually something I still want to pursue a little bit further. But the coaching kind of fell into place around playing, and it was the best opportunity for us to play and still have a form of employment, and it worked really well. Tucks were very good to us. We were able to stay at the High Performance Centre when we were training for Athens. So from that point of view, that kind of set a little bit of a path for us, or for me specifically. And then I actually moved out of the coaching side of things for a while into the managerial role with Tucks, which I really enjoyed. You know, structure, and I enjoyed being in charge of Craig. I'm joking, but I think from that point of view, it worked well. And then I think when kids come along, flexibility is really important, and you know, being involved in sports, depending on where you're at. In my position, I wasn't able to pursue, or I chose not to pursue anything to the level that Craig has had. We agreed, you know, that at the stage it would make more sense for him to pursue it. And so I think that's the mutual decision that we've made. And I'm very fortunate to still be involved, but in a less, I suppose, serious capacity.
And Nats, I want to stay with you and your early playing days. You played for SA Under-21, and you guys went to the World Cup in Korea in 1997. Yeah. And it wasn't long after that you got called up to the national team. Why do you think that you got picked as a young lady in that particular squad? What are the strengths of your game that you think the selectors picked you? And obviously, you were hoping with one eye on Sydney and coming up.
Yeah, I suppose I was quite versatile as a player. I think versatility was my strength. I know that's when I eventually did make it under Roz, you know, that was one of the things she always spoke to me about in terms of being able to play in defence and midfield. Definitely defensive skills were my strengths, and the ability to mark players out of a game. I think, you know, at that stage, but probably as a youngster, fitness, really hardworking, and versatility, I'd say.
I mean, you had to work really hard as well, Nats. I mean, I remember watching you in training sessions. I remember your leadership role. Like, I think from what I remember of you watching you play is you were a role model, and you were a motivator, and you called the right lines, and you got the girls to do what they were good at, and you kind of managed that a lot. Would you say that that's quite accurate?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate to be in a few leadership roles. I think. You know, I always try and bring up the best in players. It's trying to keep people giving their best. I very much a talker on the field. I can't play being quiet, good or bad. Some people may disagree. So I think it's the ability to bring people along with a common goal. I always had good relations with the coaches. I think I was quite mature as a youngster, not in certain things. But, you know, when I was on the hockey field and playing, I think I was able to get the job done. And if I was given a task and a role, you know, I think I fulfilled it quite well.
And Nats, I mean, you and Nidhi are similar like this. I think whatever you guys decide to do, you go 100% the best you can, both on and off the field. And I remember there was an SAU down in East London where you took the Tuckies girls, and I remember having a fines meeting with you guys where our goalkeeper was in a lettered suit, and climbed along the branch of the tree and he kind of literally dropped in on the fines meeting. Shout out to Kane. But I remember you on that tour as well, like inspiring the girls to not just play hard and train hard, but also to like really enjoy the moments.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, at the end of the day, particularly when you're a student, you know, I mean, look, I know that USA is quite different now to how it used to be, but I do think we did a pretty good job of having an amazing time and still delivering really good hockey. You know, and I think that was the ability, you know, I always said to the girls, listen, at the end of the day, if you can't perform the next day, there's issues, you know. So yeah, we had some incredible times. I remember drinking quite a lot of Red Sambuca for the team as the coach during that time. It was important that I took responsibility. So never ever gone near Red Sambuca again. But yeah, I think you have to enjoy different phases, but you have to have a balance. And I think anything excessively, you know, can become a bit of a problem. But it's really important during those phases the social element was, I mean, that's where half the memories come from, you know. Yes, of course you're going to remember the playing side. You know, I would question anyone who doesn't give 100% in anything that they do, particularly when you're playing a tournament of that nature. But of course, you're going to have a bit of fun.
You can't not, yeah.
Yeah. And Nettie, I remember you didn't start out as a striker. You ended your career at the front of the pitch, but you also started out in the back four.
Yeah, like quite interesting. Like I got capped under. I actually got selected to go to the Azlan Shah in Penang, but I had a motocross accident. I fell off my bike and I broke my collarbone, so that didn't work out too well. So that healed, and then I got selected to go to India to the Irigandi tournament. Tony Godding and that actually was listening to Clarkie's one, and then yeah, it was a fantastic tour because it was an interim coach. It was my first tour, and I started in the midfield there, but when Featherstone took on a more senior role as the head coach, I was at the back, left and right back. That's where I played most of the time. He had some 5 at the back structure and to beat the offside trap, because we still played offside at that time in Atlanta. It was the last tournament that we played it, and ended up as an overlapping player that he wanted me to get in behind. And yeah, I love the attacking side of it. The defensive thing, I suppose, I was very young, so I made a few mistakes as a defender, and they cost you. But at the same time, I remember once in Atlanta, I think we had like a minute to go or something, and we were 3-3 against Korea, and I literally passed the ball straight to their striker on the top of the D. But the best thing that ever happened was they blamed it all on Jacko. On the commentary, on the whole thing. And Jacko got blazed for this thing, and it was actually me, left back. I tried to pass it to him, and this Korean intercepted it. Brian Myberg made a fantastic save. We went up the other end. I'd actually hit the post, actually. Then we went up the other end and won a corner. We could have won the game, so I would have had a great assist. But ended up 3-3. Yeah, so I started at the back and ended up front.
Well, Nettie, I think what I remember at the Olympics that we played in Athens is that even though Rev started you in the front line, we based our game plan, particularly against Australia and against India, having 2 strikers basically marking their 2 centre backs in those channels and putting as much pressure as we can. And I think the role that you played in those 2 games in particular that I remember was the most colossal defensive effort. And can you give us some insight into that?
I don't know. Like, I think when I look back at kind of playing games as a youngster, I liked winning, but I think I hated losing more. So when you have that kind of outlook on it, I'll pretty much commit, throw myself around, put the body on the line, do almost anything within reason not to lose, if that makes sense, to try and help. And in those games, like that Aussie game, we played really, really well in that game. I think it was 3-2. And I remember like a lot of frustration from that Australian team at the time in that game, because it wasn't full flowing. They couldn't hit from centre back right up the field what they were doing. And we forced him in field. And yeah, it took a lot of work. At the same time, we just got pipped at doing it. But I think we were all pretty good around playing a tactic that kind of stopped their strengths. And we needed a lot of energy to obviously do it and pull it off. Didn't work so well against New Zealand where we tried it, but Hayden Shaw decided to throw it all over the place, and he caused us a lot of issues today. But not for lack of trying, that's for sure. But I look back at that tournament proudly. I think we did really, really well in terms of using what we had and how to get the best out of all the guys. And I mean, we could have scored 1 or 2 more goals, but we had 1 or 2 things go against us that also was pretty mad to discuss as well. Like Holland scoring that goal came off Gravy's chest down. Or was it your chest?
Well, yeah, I think it's the cross came in. It was before the rule of.
No, not that one. That was the third goal.
That was the winner.
That one. Yeah, that was Carl Klaver, and he basically claimed it, and it came off your stick, and it was a 3-2. And we knew from then they weren't going to win the goal because that was should be a long corner. And the one before was off Gravy's chest and came back to your man who pushed out, and he knocked it in, and it was like that came straight off his chest. We all went mad, and he's like, play on, goal. Yeah. So after being 2-0 up, and Sev scored that cracker as well, so, and then Simo got the flip flick, to go 2-1. Yeah, so I thought in those 2 games, like I knew what I had to do, and I was literally going to do anything to do it, put it that way, and if it made that bit of a difference that we could got a result or a draw, or it would have been epic, but just not enough on the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Nats, I want to throw it back to you again. Which was your favorite tournament? Commonwealth Games, World Cup, or the Olympics?
Or SAU?
Or SAU?
It's an interesting one. Definitely between the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. Like, Manchester was a phenomenal tournament. I don't know. It was just, I think it was, I suppose, the personal, it's quite a personal tournament because it's not as big as the Olympics. Just the vibe inside the village. I think we ended 5th. The Olympics experience in itself is like you're in the Truman Show and you're living in a bubble for X amount of time. That for me was amazing. The Olympics probably tops it. I'd say the Olympics probably tops it. But both of those 2 tournaments for me would definitely have stood out more. Athens, it was difficult that with us not going to the opening ceremony. Obviously it was relevant to playing the game. So that was a pity because I think it would have been amazing to experience that. The closing ceremony is one on itself, but that's a different kind of experience. I think, Athens, it's very difficult to explain to somebody what it's like to go to an Olympic Games. I think it's just when you've been working so hard for something your whole life and you get there, it's really important just to be able to take it all in.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
And also, I think just for the folks out there who probably are asking, well, geez, how could you not go to the opening ceremony of the Olympics? Just to paint a picture for you guys and girls who are tuning in. If you played the 8 o'clock game, considering it was about a 40-minute bus drive to the Astro from the Olympic Village, plus factoring in your normal hour or 2-hour warm-up routine. I remember playing that 8 o'clock game against Argentina, and we ate breakfast at about 4:30 in the morning in the Olympic Village, and guys are coming back from the nightclubs.
Yeah. I think it's a logical sacrifice to make for anybody, I suppose, from the perspective of when you standing, you waiting, you buses, you queues. It's not possible to go to something like that if you have a game the next day, because the main thing is that you're on your feet, you don't sleep, you don't eat at the right time, etc. So when you've worked so hard preparation wise, I remember doing these conditioning sessions in Joburg when we were living in Pretoria, training fitness wise for the Olympics, and you would be leaving at 5 in the morning to get there, knowing that you're going to go and run for an hour, tasting that blood in your throat, freaking running in altitude in Johannesburg in the morning. When you've been doing that for however long, it's really not worth stuffing it up for one more ceremony. So yeah.
Absolutely. But I think both of your finest moments probably came at the closing ceremony. Let's be honest. You got to tell that story.
I think I got a gold medal for that.
He definitely tips me on most of these stories. Craig tips me on these. We always get the extra extreme. That's when he really gives 100%. I mean, didn't
Well,
you manage to get off the stage? Sorry?
No, but I have to put it in perspective.
First of all, I lost him for half the night. I mean, that's the other thing.
I wanted to be
Then you
lost,
were in
to be
serious
honest.
trouble because I couldn't find you. And you and Jacko, I don't know who, Timo Vess, were, I don't know where you were.
I think, Juan, to put it in perspective, I think, like, briefly, we'd lost the 9th, 10th playoff position to GB. And, man, I had bet the house that I was going to score my flick. And, like, it had been going for 6 months. We'd had a really successful campaign against Belgium, and in the sudden death there, I scored mine, and Wayno scored his, and then Reckinger missed his. But with Stanny, it was actually so funny because we actually recorded that Reckinger flicked bottom left 3 times in a row in Cape Town. Like, we played it 3 times and he threw it out every single time. And then we looked at the way he stood, and then with Stanny at the time, we had said, okay, it's on. He's doing it again. And Stanny was already standing there when Oak flicked it. And that was
I remember.
It was it. It was done. So then I kind of, like, worst part about that is I scored mine, but then obviously Simon Mason saved his against me in the play, the sudden death one. And I was broken. I honestly thought that was it. It was going to be it. We were going to finish 9th. Because the other Atlanta Olympics, we finished 10th, and the highest men's team had ever finished was 10th. So that was the opportunity. So for 24 hours prior to I think it was even longer, like longer than that, I was down, down, because I thought, no, what the hell's going on here, you know? And when that closing ceremony basically started, I switched the flip in my head and said, okay.
In your head?
Yeah, well, like, I'd made a decision. And said, listen, okay, I am going to enjoy this thing, and it's going to be memorable. And that was it. And I ended up, I remember standing with Craig Jackson, and I was standing next, like, there was this Greek pop kind of band on the stage, and it's like quite a big walkout, like 50 meters or whatever. And they were going off, and they came off, and all these bouncers were around him. And I was like, I'm in the perfect place at the right time. And I said to Jacko, please hold my beer. I'll be back. And I ran. And I just ran straight onto the platform. And I got right to the end. And I actually
left me. And the next thing, carry on.
I wasn't taking you because you would have slowed me down.
Craig's on the bloody walkway.
Oh, man. I said, how to everyone. And I saw half the mates down in the hockey oaks, and it was absolutely classic. And got to the end, and I turned around, and I saw all these bouncers running at me. And I was like, okay, I'm not jumping off here. It's too high. They're going to have to carry me off here. But then as we got to, like, the end of they picked me up, and they were like, escorting me off. And I was like, Oaks, do you know who I am? You need to let me go right now, because I'm going to report you. And they let me go. And then I was like, okay, Jack, I need my beer.
Classic.
And, let's go. Oh, it was hilarious. It was hilarious. And then Butler, the left back from Australia, he actually filmed it. I still haven't seen it because a lot of people don't believe me I did it, but I'd actually like to see it because that would be pretty funny.
I think I found you some hour in the morning. Then we joined, I think Susan and I went to the Australian.
Then I fell into the pool. There was like this fountain. Oh, it was hilarious. And I swapped with Jamie Dwyer. I was with Jamie Dwyer and I think Jacko and a few others, and I swapped belts with him. I still got his belt here. I found it here the other day. And it's the Athens yellow belt with the the crest and everything. Yeah, it was really fun. It was just good
times.
Yeah. Fun.
Yeah. Those were great times. Nats, I also want to ask you, and again, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but you know, you guys have done so much for hockey in South Africa, and you've led the charge, even to the point of you shooting the beauties of sports topless for Sports Illustrated with some Ned Star hockey sticks over your boobs.
So wasn't topless.
You know, if that's not pushing the hockey agenda for the public, then I don't know.
I explained that one to my daughter.
Yeah, look, you know what? It was fun. It was a lot of fun at the time. I mean, it was something I'd never done. I got an opportunity to be in the beauties of sports, and it happened to go well. I think half of Fellstead School voted, so that helped. And we got the numbers up. And then the reward was doing the shoot. in Cape Town. And at that stage, Nick White was working for Sports Illustrated still. And obviously I know Nick very well. He used to be the province coach. Him and Dunners was a stats man at the time, or Richard Dunn. It was a lot of fun. It was, I suppose,
healthy as well.
Pre-kids. It was good. It was a lot of fun. It was good for hockey as well, besides the shoots and besides the photo, which I think was done quite tastefully. The actual article and the coverage of hockey and sport and everything else that went with it was good. And I think Marshy went on as well, and she did also Beauty of Sport. So there was, I think maybe Marcel. So there was a couple of hockey girls that got into it. So that was good at the time. Yeah, and Unli did it as well. So yeah, I just think Marsh cover shoot was a little bit more revealing than others.
Amazing. And guys, you also hold an interesting stat, which is that I think, well, at the time, definitely, and I'm not sure anymore, but the only married couple to have gone to an Olympics together as a married couple. That's pretty amazing.
South Africa, was it?
Yeah, it's the first, I think, the South African record where it's the same sport code as a married couple. Yeah, and that was quite hectic, actually, in the sense around selection. Because when we went to Manchester, we weren't engaged, and we got engaged in 2003. And obviously 2004 came along, and I'd been non-traveling previously. The guys didn't get sent to Sydney, so you guys were obviously all in it. But I think from my personal playing career, I was kind of always borderline in terms of selection. Like I had to work really hard, and it was never a cutthroat that I was going to make it. Whereas I think at that stage, Craig had played himself into a position where, he was more likely to make it than I was. So it was quite stressful around the time of selection. But yeah, we're fortunate to go. It was a really cool experience.
But I think as well, what one also forgets, we got married December 2003. And for roughly around the first 4 or 5 months, like I seldom saw Nats because of the training blocks were different, the tours were different, and it was really weird. Like we get married, we went for a month honeymoon to Thailand, and the day I arrived back, we had a camp in Cape Town. And I was trying to run on the beach. I was trying to I was pretty sore for a week when that camp started. But then everything started to kind of split again. So the camps, the trainings, and everything was really different because of the 2 different programs. And then to actually have made it together and go and have the relief of, okay, imagine you're a married couple and you're both trying to make the team and one of you doesn't make it. Like, it's not cool. And then it worked out, and it was really cool.
It was an amazing experience. It's a really cool memory, I guess, to have, and we're very fortunate to have been through it together.
And I think what I really find amazing is that not only are you guys married and went to the Olympics together, but Nettie, you also played with Grants in Atlanta, and not only that, but you also have a cousin, Dale Robert Isaacs, represented South Africa at indoor hockey. So it's like a fully family affair.
And under 21 as well, played the World Cup with you, I think, or he played under 21 World Cup as well. I think hockey was never played by my parents, or my dad's a golfer. My mom played a lot of golf. We dabbled in all the sports as we grew up and that. But I played rugby at Boys High in Standard 7, played hockey Standard 6, and then said, no, I want to try. My mates are all playing rugby. I'll go play rugby. And the problem was, in the same season, the guys were getting bigger, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And I was scrum off and fly off, and I just knew I had a sell-by date here, and it was not going to happen. So I went back and then played first team in Standard 8 and got a break with Greg Feather and Peter Kirsten was the coach. And my brother was then obviously in the team, and it was awesome. And then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I feel I can put everything into this, and it was really cool. So
amazing. Sure. And so I have to ask you one funny story.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to say, just sorry, just remembering the point was just getting back, because that's when I started to play with my brother at Boys High. That was the point I was trying to make. So I was in standard 8, he was in matric, and then it was awesome playing with Jeff. And then when we got older and I got out of school and all that, played under 21, and then we made the national team together. Then we went to Atlanta together, and then we fortunately scored in the same game against USA, and that was pretty special as well.
Wow.
And yeah, so that was quite a cool thing. So,
and I mean, Grant still works in hockey now. I mean, he's at North Carolina University as well. So it is quite a cool stat, and it's quite so special that
two brothers are coaches, and are making hockey a living. So it is possible that there's plenty of opportunities. You obviously just got to persevere, and if it's something you really love, then you got to take all the, the not so nice things and go with it.
Easy.
No,
I mean, it's definitely not. I suppose the travel and everything else that goes with it, but at least being in it, you can understand it. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. So we got about 15 minutes left, guys. So what I want to do is, Nat, you're going to tell us one funny story, which I'm going to ask you about first. And then, Neddy, I think it would be amiss of me to not dive deep into your role with Belgium and with Ireland, and talk a little bit about South Africa and South African hockey, and what we can learn from someone like you in your position, and Revs and the other guys who are uniquely positioned around the world. But before we dive deep into the serious nitty-gritty of hockey, and, come on, Nats, you're going to have to tell us the story. And Porks reminded me of the story. She said, you got to get Nats to tell about the aeroplane party at Tuks. Come on, let's have it.
Well, I'm not sure what you want to know about it, but we used to run airplane parties, which is
such a good concept.
Basically, you buy a ticket for the airplane, and each team has a dress code and a theme. And we used to do it in the what was that, your class? Yeah, was it your class?
Did it your
we used to do it at Tuks, and we used to. So the one year we went as Lara Croft from Tomb Raider, the Tuckies girls first team, and I think the story that she's referring to, I don't know, but I was at that stage, I was in charge of Tuks hockey, so we had got the venue, and we had to be out there by a certain time, etc. And we went in, and it was you go to a country and you have a drink from that country, and then you leave, and you walk out the door and you come back in and you stop at your next country and you have a drink. And I mean,
7-8 countries later.
I think it might have been when somebody came to find out, asking Candace, who was also working with me at the time at Tuks, who's in charge, and it's time for you to leave. And I think I might have been dancing behind the bar, possibly. I'm not sure if
I think it was on the bar.
On the bar.
Let's be accurate here.
I'm not sure about that. I might
Behind
have
the bar?
challenged that decision.
No. Security came to close it down, and they said, "Who's running the show here?" And we turned around, and on the bar, there's Natalie doing the thing up there, and it was like, okay.
I was ushering people out.
Of course you were.
It was good fun though. Just really, really good fun.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, Eddie, let's get serious here. Thanks, Nats. Okay. You did an amazing job with Ireland. When you took over from Revs 2014, you took those guys from being like no hopers in world hockey to getting their best results ever, being a firm fixture in the top 10, taking them to the Olympics, doing amazing at the Europeans. And I think, like when watching that, we are obviously immensely proud of you and the job that you did there. But I can just see why, like, your personality resonated with all of the things that the Irish pride themselves on, and that's they are fiercely patriotic. They will absolutely back themselves as underdogs, and they love a good scrap. And I think, you were the perfect coach to take them from where they were to where they ended up before you moved on to Belgium. Tell us a little bit about that mentality, Neddy.
I think, like as you rightly said, like you have to have talent. You need good players. You can still lose with good players. Everyone knows that. But you need a certain amount of talent. But the mindset and the mentality is what obviously brings that out under pressure. So we were all in it together in a sense of that had a really big disappointment with not making London Olympics. They kind of they conceded with like 17 seconds to go and lost to Korea, which was tough. I flew over from South Africa. I wasn't working with the team, and I commentated on the game, but I flew over to watch them qualify. And it was heartbreaking because like they played well, they'd had a fantastic tournament, and against Korea, they had to just get over the line. Deflection goal, last 7-10 seconds to go, they're out. Game over. So Meredith came in after that for about a year, and then Davey Hart called me and said, listen, I actually applied for the job when Meredith applied for the job, and I didn't get it. And for obvious reasons, he put 2 gold medals on the table because he'd been with Germany and had a fantastic run, 2 gold medals there. And I'd said, okay, I'll leave it for a while. I'm happy in South Africa. Davey Hart phoned me and he said, listen, we really need you back. Is there a possibility that you could think about this? Fine. And cut a long story short, joined the team 214. The biggest thing that I felt had to be done was that game had to be debriefed. And when you have a major kind of disappointment and the game's not debriefed, it's because there's so much emotion attached to it. You don't even want to think about it. You don't think about it clearly. So we had to really separate the emotion and get to facts and rewatch the game in parts and said, if we defend like this, if we play like this, if we do that and do that, forget what was attached to it. You're not going to win many games like this. X, Y, and Z. Once we started to get clarity and then actually going, that is possible to improve. This is possible. That's possible. I think there was a bit more belief and a bit more clarity because then we could bury it and put it in a place where we could use it as fuel later because we didn't want to go back there again. And if we were going to qualify for Rio, we were going to have to go back and qualify under pressure in a game or a few games that had the same consequences as that one. So how were we going to be meant if we didn't deal with that and really get down to the wound, heal it, put it to bed, but make it as fuel for us to actually kick on. And then I was doing 6 weeks in Ireland and 2 weeks at home. So basically the family was still here. So when I asked them to commit and to really get fit, really change everything about what they were doing and what we were going to be doing, we were both in the same boat. The sacrifice was mutual. It wasn't like I wasn't doing as much as they were doing or asked them to do as much. And it was just a match made in heaven because the more I pushed, the more they pushed, and then it started to build. And then we played England. In my first game, we played England on the 9th and 10th of May, 2014. And we lost the first game 6-0 and the second game 3-0. No, the first game 3-0, second game 6. 9 goals in 2 games. And fast forward a year and a bit later, August 2015, we beat them 4-2 in the Europeans to win bronze. And it was just that period there, what was the turnaround? It was just a mental breakthrough. Confidence was there, the belief was there, but physically we worked harder than we'd ever worked before.
And also, your mantra with that team was simple. It was no excuses. It didn't matter that the guys were holding down full-time jobs. It didn't matter that some were studying. It didn't matter that you didn't have funding. It didn't matter that you didn't have HP squads or any other things. When you rocked up to training, it was like, there's no excuses. And that phrase or those little 2 words just was our mantra. That's what took that team and you to the amazing heights that you did.
Because if we had a different mindset, if we had allowed anything to come into our kind of training environment that had a hold over us, why we couldn't be successful, what were we going to do then? We did. Because there's 100 reasons why you shouldn't be successful if you're comparing against teams that we had to beat were Malaysia, Pakistan. We had to compete against GB, obviously. Like, just to give you an idea, their kind of budget was £8 million. We had a budget of maybe 400,000 euros.
Yeah.
So there's 8 is for 2 programs. Our 400 programs. You can't even compare. It's not even. So it's totally different. So leave that. We get this done off the field and on the field, and then learn some lessons. I remember before we qualified for Rio, we played 10 games in a row, but the objective was to play teams that ranked higher than us, but like a lot higher than us, top 6 in the world. And we lost 10 games in a row. But in each game, we had a very smart way of obviously kind of gauging how much better we were in possession and in stats and in GPS and relating them together. We were getting better in every single game. And that was the story behind the result. So we were very aware of the result was paint a certain picture, but what was going on behind that. And we worked really, really hard in improving that and keeping that mindset really positive, that it's okay to lose now, but we got to be pushing as hard as we can to get closer and closer. And then we ended up, you know, drawing against GB in the first game of that qualifier. And we could have won it. And they were ranked fourth, you know, fifth as well at the time. And it was kind of like surreal to go through that tournament and then finish fifth. And Australia beat New Zealand, and then we qualified for Rio. So it was, yeah, it was really powerful.
Yeah, amazing. And then, Nettie, obviously, it was a decision to have to leave that group, especially with everything that you had earned. But you couldn't turn down Belgium, not financially, but also not from the point of view of being in a setup that's fully professional and where the cutting edge in terms of the sports technology, nutrition, science, and tactical dynamics is at. Give us a little bit of an insight here in the bottom tip of Africa, the backwaters of world hockey. Tell us what it's like being involved in that setup now.
Okay, it just went a bit glitchy there. I think I got the gist of that. Juan was a really difficult decision. Like, I just signed on probably 6 months before that to take Ireland on through to the World Cup. We just qualified in Joburg in 2017, and the vision was to finish in the top 8 in the World Cup, first time for an Irish team to make the quarters. And then after that, it's anyone's game in a one-off. And that was exactly what we prided ourselves on in that space. I got a call from Adam Commons, who's the high performance director in Belgium. And he just said, listen, we've just lost one of our assistant coaches. He's going to pursue a club career. And we have an opening for the World Cup. And I remember saying, can we not look at this after the World Cup? And he said, no, this is an option for the World Cup. So it's just kind of like the biggest decision I and my family was going to make, because of everything that we had done to get to that point was based around helping Ireland get and be. And I made a decision in terms of investing in myself to try and improve myself as a coach. What can I learn from a full-time environment? Because I've always wanted to try and help get Ireland to a full-time environment. And yeah, it was a especially difficult time, but also a very rewarding time making that change. Because when I was fully welcomed by Belgium, they couldn't have done enough for me. Lovely group of players, you know, like some of the world's best players, coaches, and to fit into that environment and then bring my kind of enthusiasm and ideas was special. It was really, really cool. And then to stand over with them to winning their first maiden World Cup in a very short space of time after having validated a big decision. That never really happens, where you move from one and then be successful straight away. It's like kind of like amazing. And what an amazing tournament. It was fantastic. It was tough, but it was unbelievable. To do it in India was awesome. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay,
and the Europeans as well on the back of that,
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a hard question now, and I want you to be as honest as you possibly can. What does South Africa have to do to improve our hockey position?
I think I remember having an interview with South African hockey about I was applying for the head coach's job after Charlie and that had all gone, and I really put it on the table. I basically said the problem with the systems at the moment, it's participation. You're not interested in a high performance environment and you are happy to participate. And because of that, there's different standards for different people and coaches that are in the system, and you can't have that. So it needs to be a concerted effort on every province, on how the leagues are run, how selection is done, how you can go into many different areas, but it really needs to be on a high performance level and not a participation. And it's difficult for the teams and the coaches that are in it, because they really resources are lacking in certain areas. Forget the fact that you can't get high performance games because you here and it costs so much to travel. But then what you can do internally is really ramp it up, and you can get a lot fitter and a lot stronger and spend a lot more time together. But someone has to create the environment to do that, either using it through the universities, but someone has to pay for it. Someone has to put a marker down and say, we're taking this seriously. We want to get a team into the top 10. Give us 6 years, maybe top 8, because you're not going to do it any sooner than that, because all the other teams have got more funding, are doing much more time than you are doing together. So it's going to take a massive effort to do that. But you've got to look after the coaches. And I don't think South Africa does that very well. There's so many people that are in hockey that have amazing experience. They're not in hockey anymore. And they're being pushed out. And you're sitting with a large amount of experience. And if you tap into it regionally, you could get a lot more out of what's actually happening at the moment. Not to say that the current coaches aren't doing as well as they can or doing what they were asked of them. You could just do a collaborative effort and get more out of what's happening now by using experience gone before.
And we know, Neddy, that every nation has their own brand, their own style. We know the Pakis play in a specific way. The Indians play an amazing counter-attack, fast hands. The Germans are very structured. The Dutch have like all the presses and all of that kind of thing. What does South Africa have? Like, what's our thing that we have that we should be tapping into on a technical thing on the park? What do we do better than anyone else in the world that we should be putting our energy into?
So, like, if you look back over history, like South Africa is blessed with talented players, talented sportsmen who are physical and are technically proficient enough. They can hold their own against the best in the world. I look at that Athens team. Look at some of the guys that were in that team. You got Jacko, you got Clarkey, you got Beefy, you got guys that can turn a game. All right, so I still think throughout all those teams, there's proper athletes, proper players. But one thing that South Africa can do is tactically, they're pretty astute tactically if they get it right. The only thing that I would say is from a goalkeeper's point of view, we've had a string of really fantastic goalkeepers. That's an area that needs to be, continued, and set pieces. Like, you can be successful in hockey on set pieces and an amazing goalkeeper, tactically really, really smart defensively. So, like, you can counter as long as you're not conceding a lot of goals. You're still in the game, but your set pieces need to fire PCA, PCD. And I think South Africa has that, because you look at guys like Giles Brown, you look at guys Smith, Austin, behind that, all the way through. There's lots of set piece players that are world class.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's Genevieve, PCA, PCD, Reed Ross, all of them, they can flick, So yeah, there's that's an angle that I would look at, tactically, set pieces, and make sure the goalkeepers are firing.
Awesome, Neddy. Look, we're running out of time, my friend, but I just want to say a huge thanks to you and Nats. We could talk all day long, and I would love to do that. And I think as soon as this lockdown's over, we're going to have an ice cold beer. Thank you, Nats, for joining us on this platform.
Pleasure.
Such a privilege. Wish you guys all the best, and don't be strangers. Yeah, it's lovely to see you guys.
I'm just going to say a quick shout out to Nedstar Hockey and Umari, and I know it's probably a bit of a dodgy platform to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. To just say that it's trying times for a lot of us, a lot of companies, for everybody who's out there who might have taken a little bit of a strain or whatever the case might be. Just keep positive. Let's ride this wave and all come out of it together.
Juan, just thank you for approaching us to do this. Special time. I'd love to do it again at some other time, but well done
It's a great initiative.
Yeah,
really
well done
cool.
to you, and can't wait for the next one to hear someone else get on the list.
And you know what? We need more people coming together as well. I think at the end of the day, we have one common goal. We have a love for the game. We want to make it better. And I think sometimes everyone's in their own little bubble and they want to grow their own area. I think Craig's strength from a coach's perspective is he embraces a lot of ideas and a lot of people and sees the best in individuals. And that's just me talking from an outside perspective. So don't be scared to take ideas from other people and work together.
Thanks, Brew.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks, Nat. Thanks, Nettie. So lucky to see you
later.
guys. Lots of love and
Bye.
take.
Cool. Bye.
Right, folks. So thank you very much. I just have to say one more goodbye, and that's a shout out to my Rovers teammates. They asked me to wear my special Berea Rovers shirt today. So thanks, guys. I'm missing you. I'm missing playing hockey with you every week. But no doubt, as soon as lockdown is over and the leagues resume, we'll be back out there kicking ass and taking names. To all of you folks out there in Instagram land, and stay safe. Thank you for watching. Please spread the word, and yeah, I'll let you know who the next guest is really, really soon. In the meantime, stay safe. Lots of love.